What you know about me? I seen it all, heard it all. Oh, what you know about me? I done it all, just want it all. Oh, what you know about me? I seen it all, heard it all. Oh, what you know about me? Oh, what you know about me? Oh, what you know about me?
Hey, y'all, welcome back to another episode of More Than the Title. This is episode 108, and I'm your host, as usual, Jared Thomas, Chief Revenue Officer at Outside the Box Digital. And you know I got my brother, my brethren, your favorite CEO, Chatty-O. What's good, baby?
We're in the building, man. We're in the building once again, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
We had a great night last night, man. I'm going to tell you something. People don't realize the pressure that we putting on them. More Than the Title. We walk in the building and they More Than the Title in the building. We ain't know you had access to this room. We go, yeah, we got access to a lot of rooms you ain't know about. We putting pressure on them, ladies and gentlemen, and it's thanks to y'all. We growing and glowing. We went out to a great event last night, man, and ran into a couple past guests from the show. And we ran into some future guests that's going to be on the show. It was a great event. But like I said, man, it's the power of the momentum. We walked into the room and immediately got recognized. And that's due to you guys showing that love, showing that support, pumping that algorithm and, just putting us in front of everybody, man. So understand it's working, baby. We in them rooms now. We in them rooms. You on mute, Cuzzo. Cuzzo, you on mute.
And flowing, because when you talking, I got to stop. All right, but it's all good, though. All good. But shout out to y'all, the listeners, the growers, the followers, the subscribers across every platform, y'all. We headed towards 100,000 views this month on YouTube alone, y'all. It's because of y'all. Hundreds of downloads per episode, and we really appreciate y'all, man. It's because of y'all. Some days it get hard, y'all, but we do it with y'all, man, with y'all support straight up and down. And also shout out to our distribution partners, the Alive Podcast Network, the first women-owned, black-owned podcast network in the United States, y'all. So we don't just talk, we walk and we support our own. Shout out to Angel, the entire team. If you want more content from black content creators like More Than a Title, make sure you download the app. And once you actually subscribe, half of your money goes to the content creator straight off the bat. So you gotta love that. Now you on mute. Sorry, to the audio listeners, we are getting adjusted because we are doing it in the same house today, so it's kind of hard.
What I was saying was we've been saying the first black-owned, woman-owned podcast network in the United States, but we're gonna say the world. We're gonna say the world until we've proven otherwise. She's the first in the world.
That's it. Until
we've proven otherwise. That's what we're running with, Angel. We putting you up on a higher platform. And another big shout out, like we said before, shout out to her because she just got the 2024 Innovative Founders Award. You know what I mean? So shout out to the boss lady. You know what I mean? We love to support every achievement, right? No achievement is too small for celebration, people, right? We keep telling you that, right? Celebrate your small accomplishments and your small achievements. That way, you can enjoy your journey towards success, because success is not a destination. It's actually a journey, the path to it, right? Let's do it.
Let's do it, baby. With that being said, you know what we got to go with. We got to start the show.
Let's start the show.
Yeah, so first of all, this is a very special episode for myself, y'all. Before I introduce this queen, I just want to give y'all some background. This queen has been an instrumental, I know, to my career. I met this young lady about 5-6 years ago. I was working at a place called Talk Walker. And she was just somebody who was just pivotal and who always pulled me to the side, give me game, tell me how to move into these rooms, and just was always cheering for me. Always showed me love, man. And that hasn't stopped. And our friendship has grown. And I'm honored to be here today to introduce y'all to her and celebrate this queen's success and everything she's done in her career, because she's been super instrumental for me, y'all. But she's a strategic brand and communications coach with a career history of leading global marketing and PR and cross-functional teams while delivering advanced technology, profitable customer acquisition, advertising partnerships, and senior management background with Sirius Point, Facebook, Diageo, Time Warner, Zenio, Balmo, and many others, y'all. And also leading organizations in advertising, social equity, engineering, artificial intelligence, and technology sectors. She's also consulting and agency background with Fairfield Media Consultancy, NBC Universal, Brand Style PR, and Hotwire PR. Let's introduce this queen, Adrienne Wallace.
Gosh, that was, thank you so much. Thank you for that introduction. You did everything except tell them who my mom and dad are. So
Oh no, we about to get there. We about
yeah,
to get
blood
there.
type.
Mama.
My mom loves you. My mom loves you.
Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to arrive on your platform and see all the things that you have been doing. And so happy to get into it and talk today. What are we talking about?
We're gonna celebrate you, Queen. But I just want to say, just right back at you, just thank you. Like I said, back in that time, especially in Talk Walker, just to give people the context, right? I was maybe number 2 or 3 of Black employees out of 336. It's not that there was anything wrong with that. It is something wrong with that, but it was difficult. You know, we did really good work. I love the team that we had there. But just seeing somebody that looked like me in a leadership role, you know what I'm saying? What that did, and you pulling me to the side, you didn't have to. I just remember you walking in the office. I'm like, this lady always in the office. She's always rocking. Like, is she working? Like, nah, she's a consultant. She's rocking out with us. I'm like, okay.
Right.
And then you just gravitated. And you just like, no, come here. No, you right there. You come here. And you gave me so much game, and that was just real. So I would love to let's start from the beginning, Queen. Let's start from, you know, your early influences. Let's talk about your upbringing, and let's, you know, show the people who you are to how you get to where you are today.
I have a very, I think, typical Black America story, which is, you know, first generation to go to college, first to own a home. You know, I am the child of immigrant parents from the Caribbean, specifically Jamaica. And as the trope goes, you know, Jamaicans are hardworking people. So I have an immigrant family that came here. My mom, cousins of hers, a brother and a sister of hers, though she comes from 12 siblings in total. And I grew up in lots of places. So I've lived in 2 countries, the US and Jamaica. I spent my toddlerhood in Jamaica. And actually came while I was born in the Bronx, New York. Give it up for the Bronx.
Oh, hold on. That gets a horn. We gotta give it up. BX, Big Bronx.
So while I was born in the Bronx, New York, I don't know that I know much of the culture, because by the time I was 8 or 9 years old, we had left and moved to Houston, Texas. So my growing up is in Houston, Texas. And I loved growing up there. It was a place where I grew up fearlessly, a place where I gained awareness to racism or any bias in my own family. And I learned it because my parents have been, long before it was popular, what I would call anti-racist. Being from Jamaica, being that my mom has an Irish mix in her family, being that they're both from Jamaica, and saw all kinds of different people, particularly because of tourism and just because of the people who live there growing up, all different people of different ethnicities, though they may have shared that common nationality of being Jamaican. My parents were effectively came to this country, deemed that it was a place of opportunity, came here in the 70s. They were in their 20s. And they effectively didn't believe in this notion of racism. So they raised us in that way. And my first lesson around bias and racism was when I was 10 years old and my brother was 5 years old. We lived in an apartment complex in Houston, Texas, and we were outside playing. And my brother, who I think is still the crybaby today, started crying and decided that we needed to go back inside because a boy in the sandbox had taken his Tonka truck.
Okay.
And so, of course, being the older sister, if he's crying and carrying on, he's ruining the fun for me. I got to get off the swing. We got to go back to the apartment.
Yeah, coming out.
We get back to the apartment, and you know, having kids, you all would appreciate this. You know, or even when you were a kid, you know, when you have those cries where it's just kind of like you're shaking and the snot is running from your nose. And so my brother is crying and trying to articulate with a shaking. but the shaking with it too. And articulating to my mom that that boy took my toy. And my mom said, "What boy took your toy?" And he proceeded to say, "That white boy took my toy." And my mother said, "What did you say?" I remember this like it was yesterday. And he said, "That white boy took my toy." And my mom said for a third time, "What did you say?" And through all the sobs and the shaking, "That white boy took my truck." Right? So it becomes from toy to truck. But what didn't change was how he was describing the other child. So I remember my mom in her robe with those, remember those terry cloth slippers with the plastic bottoms?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
I'm from
in the 80s, my mom took off that and started swatting my brother on the behind. And she took him by both hands and she said, "Listen to me. You do not describe people that way. Mommy wants you to go outside, ask that boy his name, and tell him to give you your truck." Message. And then, and I'm rolling my eyes like the average 10-year-old girl. And she says, "And you're going with him." So I go with him. He asks the boy his name. Funny enough, it was Tyler. And he said, "Tyler." And he's, going back and forth. And I'm standing there, hands crossed, no fist up, hands crossed. And he said, "Tyler, my mommy said to give me back my toy." And Tyler rolls the truck in the sandbox and we pick it up and we go back. And so the lesson for me always was, though it probably wasn't as clear at 10 years old, is find out who people are just by name. What do they call themselves? Who are they telling everyone else that they are? Don't worry about their skin color so quickly, right? Figure out who people are, whether they're offending you or they're lifting you up. Don't worry about so much what the color of their skin is. Message. So, that has been embedded in me. It's the way that I've approached life. I am clear that bias exists, racism persists, but I come from an anti-racist upbringing.
I'm not mad at that, but when you said you was raised in the Bronx, right? And then you said like I had a typical upbringing, right? And then you said the first question your mother asked was, "Why is he describing that child like that?" I'm just saying I don't know what part of the Bronx you was raised at. That is not typical where we come from. I'm telling you. First of all, if I even went upstairs crying, period, forget the hysterical cry. If I even went upstairs crying at all because somebody took something from me, that's the ass whipping right there. My mom all my ass up, even coming upstairs. Did you come upstairs?
That's real talk.
I would have got beat for even coming upstairs.
Right.
That's number one.
Right.
Number two, I'd have got beat again because I let him take my toy, and I didn't fight him back out there. Then you would have got beat for letting him take my toy and us not jumping him. It's all for one and one for all out where we raised that. You understand?
Real out here, yeah.
Right, and that's probably the typical Bronx tale.
Yeah,
but you have to remember that I left there at 8 or 9 years old, so I didn't have time. I didn't have time to scrap and throw up fists and the stories of tying your hair back and taking your earrings off, and all those things. All those things that common culture tells us happen there. So I am the Bronx girl that just by saying I was born in the Bronx, that supposedly scares people, but I probably don't know how to fight.
I ain't gonna lie, Jared. I was waiting for a Vaseline story. You know what I mean? I wanted her to tell me once. I had to tie my hair up and put it in the ponytail, get Vaseline on, and we had to get busy out there.
We have to go to my sister for that, and her Vaseline stories were in Westchester, Connecticut. So we just don't
that boy
have
giving a different response and not giving up that toy.
Yeah,
it might have been a different story.
Very different.
Big sister out there.
If he would have took that toy and you would have even made the motion, like you was tying your hair up, getting ready to get down, he'd have looked at you. No, I don't even want this no more.
Right. I imagine that Tyler was probably my brother's age or a little bit older. Right. It's I think deeply about the story, and it's really the hysterics of it all, right? And as I look back in my mind's eye, just the calm that I had, which is I just want to play. Like I'm supposed to oversee you because I'm the older sibling, but I just want to play. But it was a decent story. And, you know, there are spankings and lessons that need to come to people who make assumption about people or who are racist. That was the deeper message, right? That there should be punitive damages for just calling people out just by skin color alone or by ethnicity alone. You know, so what it said to me, and the lesson is that it's as I went into business, I also and grew in ranks in business. I learned that it can be very expensive and quite punitive to be racist, you know, and to not let people stand on something other than your assumptions based on the color of their skin.
That was real. Oh, wait, same time. You almost got two messages at the same time. We both felt that. Gotta get a double for that. But that you said that though, let's segue into that. Like, and we'll go back to the story and kind of how you got into marketing. But as you climb the corporate ranks, right? Have you dealt with racism, or have you dealt with somebody that, you know, like an opportunity not being handed to? And how did you deal with that internally?
I think every day. I think the opportunities that have not been, no opportunity has been handed to me.
Absolutely.
So to clarify, you know, I'm a word. Clarify words. I've worked for every opportunity that I've had, but I've amassed those opportunities through work and relationships and really being open about relationships. I, you know, entered into a field where, just like you, Jared, very few people that looked like me. Yeah. So sometimes we learn it as children. It's the matching game. Which one of these two go together? Which one is not like the other? Right. So as we mature as we go into school, we try to find our herds and our tribes in that way. As we go into career, we're looking for people who, you know, we have something in common before we're comfortable opening our mouth. And then as we are gain opportunity and earn opportunity in the right places, because you can only gain and earn opportunity in the right places. If the place is not right for you, there's no opportunity to be gained, and there's just a lot of learning to leave with. But I have had instances of blatant racism, blatant sexism, and a lack of open-mindedness with people in general. I've worked with people who are incredibly polarizing, and I've worked in organizations that have people who are polarizing. And in my capacity as a marketer, as someone who helps to develop executive presence and media trains people, I've had to try to calm that storm in the people, as well as for the organization. About 10 years ago, 11, 12 years ago, actually, I became certified as a coach. And I did that because I was in the most profoundly global role of my career, probably the first truly global role of my career at Diageo North America. There were 130 odd brilliant marketers, 43 brands, and I needed to relate and interrelate with all of them. And so in order to do that, it wasn't just about what biases you may see. The biases I saw were impacting our money. The way that marketers thought about Black people or Hispanic people or Asian people, such that directors weren't making decisions to market to them. Message. Wild assumptions, which, you know, I'm like, that goes in the racism funnel. Yeah. Wild assumptions about people, or learned assumptions about people. You know, Hispanics only drink cerveza, I heard in a room.
Or Modelo or
Corona, that I was briefing in. And we don't do cerveza, we don't do beer. So why would we be marketing to them? And so what did I do with that? I went to an incredibly open-minded leader in Larry Schwartz at Diageo, who was president and had at that time a 40-year tenure in the liquor business. And I told him what I was hearing in these governance meetings and in these briefings with agencies from, my peers and co-marketers. And he said, so what do we do about that? And I told him that I had done some introspection. I'd looked at, the way that I was approaching the business. Was I being biased? Because does it start with you? And then I looked to see the record of how and what marketing and what advertising was being done from the various brands. And they all fell short, with the exception of, Ciroc, which was a co-brand with a once, famous rapper and rap music producer.
Yeah.
There was really nothing there. There were brands that were ethnically, or by virtue of where the brands were manufactured or where they originated, they were cultural brands like Guinness. But the fact of the matter is, the majority of marketing that was happening in North America, so the portfolio that I was responsible for, was really, really biased. And they weren't getting net sales volumes because they weren't talking to all the people. They were marketing where they were comfortable. They were also hiring agencies that looked like them, predominantly white run, white owned, very few women owned agencies. And I was like, yeah, I have the power to say that that's not working anymore. And that's why we're leaving so much money on the table and bottles on the shelf.
Message.
Ooh.
And Larry was like, so, what do you propose? And I was like, this is marketers getting into the face of procurement, who brings us the agencies and, helps to craft the agency contracts. And what we need to do is we need to look at these contracts. We need to look at the talent inside of these agencies beyond the quality business review. We need to figure out who can do multicultural marketing. And when we found out that there weren't a lot of agencies that could do that, I decided that we were going to bring smaller agencies in. And when I say smaller agencies, I'm talking about small as two guys running something out of their garage.
OTB, baby.
And
Got a plug.
And they've got the insights and the knowledge and the experience and the cultural depth to say, this is how you need to talk to the Black female consumer. This is how you need to speak to the Hispanic male consumer. And whether it was out of home or a digital ad at Yankee Stadium, or, I got in the cars and rode with the distribution groups. They were like, who is this? And, why are you dressed like that, but you have on sneaks? But I rode with the sales guys because I wanted to understand their experience. What were, the bar owners in Queens saying to you? What were the liquor store owners in Brooklyn saying to you? Because I'm like, that's where the peoples are. All the people that you're not marketing to, that you're assuming that they're just going to consume, that you don't understand the way in which they consume. Remember, I have a Jamaican heritage.
Second period. Now you're going to marketing masterclass right now.
I have a Jamaican heritage. So always tap into your heritage, wherever it is that you are, wherever it is that you land. And when I thought about it, I was like, what does my family consume? And I remember being that 10-year-old girl and my father consuming Guinness, stout, brown bottle, hasn't changed, same bottle, same shape.
Yeah.
Didn't know I was going to become a marketer at 10 years old, or someone involved in mass communication in any way. But I recall my father used to take Guinness stout, 2 raw eggs, sweetened condensed milk, put them in a blender, a lot of ice, and he called it his elixir. On Fridays and Saturdays. Friday was daddy's payday. Saturdays was a chill day. He worked half day. My dad was an auto mechanic. And he said the protein content gave him a lot of strength, right? And so, or revived him in some way. And so I kind of said to them, do you know how people use these are different? It's not, everybody's not like pouring it in the bottle and, tasting it, or they're not just putting a bottle to the head. Hispanics, people from the Caribbean, people from India, people from Puerto Rico, and just the entire diaspora of peoples in that multicultural tapestry are using wines and spirits in ways that are very different than the assumption of white America. They're tenderizing their meats. they're marinating their sauce, creating their marinades and their sauces. And so it was really looking at ourselves beyond the bar. So once we did that, we brought in these agencies who could understand that those were the kind of stories and narratives that needed to emanate from our advertising. And those were the ways that we needed to appeal even in restaurants, and special mixes that mixologists in certain restaurants were making. Once we were able to do that, once we were able to say, where do we need to be and celebrate the Caribbean Day Parade that happens on Memorial Day, all of these things. Once we got our assumptions and our biases aside, we ended up creating, with the marketing team, a supplier diversity group inside the organizations that came from what is similar to the Rooney Rule. That's what Larry called it. He said, "Oh, it looks like you're going to create a Rooney Rule." I said, "What's?" Yeah. He said, "Do you know what that is?" And I said, "Who's your team?" Mm-hmm. You know, I was a Patriots fan. He was a Giants fan. He said, "So you understand the Rooney Rule? It started in football, and it's the idea that you need at least one Black coach candidate, right? For me, it was one woman, one Black, one Hispanic, whether it was PR or out-of-home advertising, that when we were going to brief in the room from this point forward, and it didn't have to be on multicultural business, that those people were also in the room."
And quick questions, but same thing like the Rooney Rule, right? The big misconception about the Rooney Rule is that it's just a show game, right? You have the Black talent come in the room. You already know who you want to do because already a backdoor meeting, a backdoor conversation of somebody who you want to be the head of your franchise or organization. So how did you guys pick talent?
So my power was to hell with the AOR.
Boom. There you go.
Message. We have the AORs, but does that serve us, right? Gotcha. We've got a net sales volume problem. Is the AOR taking accountability for that? And also really refining your business, that this notion of vendors, no, everyone's a partner, right? Yeah. You're going to come in, you're going to do the creative, you're going to craft the language, you're going to do the experiential, you're going to do all of those things for us. You're going to get a set fees for doing that. Yeah. But if we win, you win. So it was really changing kind of and creating a bonus structure for agencies as well. And I'm talking all agencies, whether you're AOR or you're a one-off. There were instances where the AOR really had the resources, but they didn't have the ideation and they didn't have the cultural depth and the power. So Adrienne says that you're going to work with us. You're going to work with JWT, small agency, on this thing for Smirnoff.
Exactly. And for those listening to AOR, those who are not in the marketing, agency of record. So Diageo have a big agency like a McCann, a JWT. This is our overarching brand. They're going to help us with all of our activations, whether it be digital, paid, whatever. And then you're basically hiring other agencies to kind of fill in the gaps of what their expertise is to help that leading agency, which is the agency of record.
Right. And so that's how you do it. At the end of the day, when it was all said and done, there was $18 million of new revenue that was nowhere on the performance, unpredicted. So our power lies in being super open-minded, understanding that the problems that we have in business usually starts with, where is my bias? Where's the bias in the business? And who wants to team with me and fix it? And I don't care what you look like, but I do need people that look like me coming along.
Message. That's a powerful statement. I thought you were gonna say something. I'm like, that was powerful.
I'm just taking it all in. No Diddy. No. I knew it was about to flow this way. I said no Diddy.
Yeah, you're stupid.
It's so refreshing to understand the lesson that she took from her mother's teaching, right?
Oh.
Right? The lesson. So remember even if the lesson wasn't taught directly to her in that moment of the story that she told us about her little brother, she understood the message being taught in the moment, right?
Oh, absolutely.
She took that message as a child and applied that all the way up her career. Now, once she got into position, she's telling you, right? me using this message helped me to help the company grow, which one shows my value, right? Shows my value. Two, it shows that I can now be a leader and bring other people in, right? Bring other people in that now look like me and justify it, right? Not just say, yeah, I'm bringing them in because now I'm in charge and I'm this color and I want to do that. I can justify it and make it make sense to everybody, because that's a very important topic that we don't talk about a lot of times. When we are extending that hand back, right, to others that look like us or come from our culture, right? A lot of times we have to justify it, right? We have to, well, why them, right? Like you said, maybe the two-person shop that is not the big agency, that doesn't have the big resources. Why would you go with a brand new company that's unproven, right? And you can say, well, this is why. Because bigger agencies, yeah, they have the resources, but clearly they're not connecting the dots and they're failing. You want to keep failing and running with this, or you want to get the job done? You see what I'm saying? Because, you know, for our culture, it's always measure twice, cut once, right? We have to be double cautious of the mistakes that we make versus the mistakes that another culture is allowed to make without any type of kickback, right?
That early on. As children. I mean, talk about the lessons from childhood, and if you're lucky enough, the ability to drag it through, you know, all the different phases of life and into your career. But we're taught early from childhood, you have to show up earlier, you have to be twice as good and to get also to be compensated sometimes half as much, right? We're taught that, and that is, man, that's low-key trauma, right? I think all parents and our forebears were well-intended. Work hard, do good, expect good. You have to be that much better than you know, your white counterparts. And oftentimes it was always about measuring against a white counterpart, but that's not my only counterpart. And so, you know, for me, I think it's to find people in other cultures who probably share that same lesson that can actually be traumatic and actually be limiting as well as it can be motivating. And so people of Asian descent will tell you that specifically people who are Indian or Pakistani, or people who, you know, come from China or even Korean will tell you, especially when they're first generation, that they've been told that they need to be 2 or 3 times as better.
Yeah.
You know,
it's disgusting.
So you always go at things, not necessarily just with your passion, but with this idea that you have an obligation to fulfill to your mere existence. And so you have to go harder and you have to work harder. And we should just all work well as opposed to harder, I think.
Yeah,
that's definitely. I thought you were gonna give it a baby on that.
I was gonna give it a baby. Then I was gonna give it a coffee too.
Listen to him.
Listen to her. You're gonna learn something.
We talk about this all the time, Adrienne, extensively, because we have to continually to have this conversation, right? Not enough. It's not enough for us to just say, okay, I want to be in the room. We have to prove that we're able to be in the room via our work ethic, via our educational level, via our experience, right? And a lot of the ways that they keep us out the room is by simply saying, well, you don't have the education for the job.
Can't say that anymore.
Right? You don't have the formal education for the job, when realistically I can outperform who you have doing the job, right? Or they'll say, well, you don't have enough experience for the job, but how can I ever get the experience if you never give me the opportunity? You know what I mean? So they put so many obstacles in our way, so many roadblocks for us to overcome, that sometimes the frustration can overwhelm you, right? It can overwhelm you when you're going through these things as, let's say, a first generation person, without being able to look back and ask somebody for help and guidance on how to now navigate these waters, because you're kind of the first one doing this, right? You said, for example, your father was a mechanic, right?
Brilliant mechanic.
Right.
A brilliant mechanic. All mechanics are. All mechanics are brilliant.
Right. But his speciality is in a specific technical field, right? Now, now that's him hands-on. That's the hands-on, right? We know about the hands-on guys, right? They might not understand the business and how it runs, but they understand the technicalities. You know why you say that all mechanics are brilliant? Because it takes a technical mind to understand how to do those type of jobs, which is completely different from a mind that it takes to understand how to do the business side. It's a completely different way of thinking. It's a completely different way of thinking, right? That's the difference between like engineers and architects. It's a big difference, right? It's an entirely big difference, right? So, but by him being now, you coming from somebody that has that technical thing, and now you're experiencing something else. Going home now, let's say if you wanted to use him and say, hey, this is what I'm going through, his experience wouldn't be able to kind of help you navigate your experiences, because his experiences are in a different class of what you would be going through in the moment. You understand?
So it helps me immensely. I lost my dad in July of 2021, and I miss him oftentimes like air. You know, like I gasp for here missing him, because my first business lessons came from him. In Texas, he owned Ray's Auto Repair. And so imagine this 10-year-old girl in the summers, rather than summer camp, spending time. My mom was his accountant, so she worked front office doing the invoices. And it was just my mom and my dad and an occasional person that would work for him when he had the good luck of having too much work. But I realized that my father would wipe off his greasy hands or wipe his hands on his blue jumper, and he would shake hands with people who looked, in my mind now, really refined business people. He would have people drop off their cars and they had their children with them, or they needed to take the car seat out. I remember my father taking a car seat out because a woman had someone put it in but didn't know how to take the car seat out as she was transferring to her husband's car so they could leave her car there. So the thing about being an auto mechanic, and my father said this to me several times, is how he loved the work and how he learned everything he could about what was happening to cars and how they were changing. So my dad was here as, you know, obviously electric cars took hold and everything like that, but he is a classical auto mechanic, and said that the thing for him wasn't his love of cars. It was that he understood that the safety of someone's beloved was being put in his hands.
Message.
Make a wrong repair or miss something, and a vehicle can break down, create an accident on a highway. A hose not being properly connected could have a vehicle blow up. He was a brilliant man. And he understood his connectedness to people. And so whether it's you are an engineer or a mechanic, whether you are the porter or the CPO at an organization, it's your connection to people and how your work impacts people.
Message.
If the porter doesn't do a good job, a porter is a marketer. They're cleaning toilets, cleaning the floors, wiping down desks, vacuuming the floors. But if you, as a client or an employee, walk into that office and things look dirty and disarray, it sets in your mind a perception of the brand, whether you want to work there or whether or not you want to do business with those people.
Yeah.
So my point is that no matter your education, everyone's work is valuable. Everyone impacts what it is believed of a particular brand. I imagine that my father, by virtue of his ability to repair certain makes of cars, created an impression of a make of car. His inability to repair a particular make of car left an impression. And don't you think that he was ever collecting the data? So he would say, man, these Ford trucks always do that. Or, yeah, you better get you a caddy.
Yeah.
Right? So everyone is important. Everyone is collecting business data. Whether or not they communicate it in a way that works for you is a whole other thing. But everyone has value.
Message.
More than the title, baby.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
I agree with that. Yeah, no, listen, and you can tell by the way she speaks that, you know,
Passionate.
she's passionate and sincere about
Real.
what she's saying, which is which is very hard for somebody to listen to what she's saying and take her for a joke, or take her for somebody that's just trying to like ride the wave, or, you know, try to sound important, because you can feel the energy.
Yeah.
In the words. You understand what I'm saying? And we listen, we believe the same thing. You know, my cousin says that a lot of time. Lead with love. Lead with love, right? You know, treat everybody the way that you would like to be treated. You know what I mean? And then go from there. You know what I mean? And I might not say it the same way, but I listen. I treat people very courteous, because I like to give you the opportunity to make the mistake. Then the lion come out. Then the conviction come out. I'm like, oh, you I gave you the opportunity. Yeah, right. Yeah. Then when the lion come out, I'm like, I gave you the opportunity. You know what I mean? But it's, I want to say this. I didn't know that your father owned a shop. So now that makes him an entrepreneur. So now your story changes now, because now your story goes from actually being a female that was raised two-parent household of just working parents to being introduced to entrepreneurship as a young woman.
Absolutely.
Yep.
You understand what I'm saying?
Early. Yeah.
It's a very important lesson.
Yeah.
And it's a different lesson that a lot of inner city youth, urban America like us, we never get a chance to see that.
Right.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't think that had we not left for the suburbs of Texas, of Alief County, and we stayed in the Bronx, New York, that he would have achieved that we would have even lived in a house versus an apartment. I think that environment has a lot to do with it. I think my parents were brave, again, really young parents, no mentors. And it's just kind of whisper down the lane that greater opportunity might be here. And so they came to New York, Bronx, America. And then, they left from there and went to Texas. And my dad always forged the way. He went first. Like, let me go see, let me make sure, that the path is clear. And then we followed behind a month or two later. And so that's what I remember. And I think there are always in life, there are business lessons. I think a lot of times people try to outrun who they are or what they came from. And if you take enough step back and realize that you belong here, you're meant to be here, no matter who your parents were, and try to figure out how these lessons or how what I experienced might apply, or set boundaries for how it is that I do business, whatever my business is. I think it makes for a really, really great leader overall.
Message. And shout out to your parents, man. They came to the Bronx and said, I'm getting the hell out of here. Right. Ain't for me. Yeah. This shit ain't for me. Yeah. But I say that to say, like we had this Zoe on the other day, right? A couple of weeks back. We were talking about, why people celebrate making it out the hood, right? And all the challenges and obstacles you face. And then when you finally make it out, you're just constantly saying, yes, I made it out. But you wouldn't understand unless you feel those obstacles. And I feel like your parents identified those obstacles and also went to somewhere where it's feasible for y'all family, where that was real. A lot of people don't see that. You know what I'm saying? And so if you do make it out of circumstances, man, out of any circumstances that we go through as Black Americans, you are special.
Yeah, I think there were whispers down the lane for my dad that he probably had a small community of men, not elder than him, but same age as him, that were making those kinds of moves in the 80s. Absolutely. And so he caught hold of that whisper down the lane. And I think I get my fearlessness from my dad, my ability to rise early from my dad. I am my own person, but I attribute a lot of those tendencies and good habits to him for certain. I attribute, my nurturing to my mom, my nurturing way, my love of cooking, and creating community and bringing people together. I attribute that to her. So it's the one thing I say is that as you go into business, no matter who you are, is to take the strong attributes. And some of the attributes are strong and you don't even realize it until you start to have an experience and something comes back to you. For those who have children, those in business that have children, I think the one thing that I want them to be fully aware of is to be present when you are with your children. And then more than anything else,
The dog agreed.
Femi endorses
that. The dog, he said, be with your children.
Time out.
That was funny.
That's the first ever dog approval co-sign on More Than the Title. Because that was right on point.
She fully endorses that, but be as present as you can with your children and remember when you were a child. But more than anything else, as I'm taking you all through my story, I can remember and tell you my exact address when I was 7 years old, right? I remember what the environment looked like. I remember the corners that I played in, or the corners that I probably wasn't allowed to play in. And so for those of us who are business leaders and have children, you're setting leadership standards for your children in just the home life. It never stops. The learning starts even there. Someone was talking to me the other day about the horrible thing that is so common in our generation, which is, the bullying in schools. And even worse than that, the shootings that occur in schools that seem so commonplace. And I really took time to reflect and says, do I have memory of that in my childhood? Very little or none. Very little or none. And why is it that my generation was not that generation apt to do such things? What is it about the children that we are bearing upon the world, the children that we're raising? And she said, yeah, it's about how we're raising our kids. Absolutely. And then I said to her, my grandmother used to say, you don't raise children, you raise animals, you raise cattle. Message. You nurture children. You nurture children. So it all starts at home. Mentorship starts at home. Sponsorship starts at home. Don't get into anything that you're doing in the way of work that you say, oh, I'm so tired and I'm working hard and I'm doing this for my kids, but you're not showing up to their games, or you're not there for the play that they're in, or you're not able to take, 2 hours to go and taste all different kinds of ice cream and even come home with a bellyache because you tasted, 20 flavors. Take the time and invest in your children. That is the beginning of the future. It's parental engagement. All of what we end up with in the work world is a divine reflection of what happened in the home life.
Okay.
And that includes the racism.
Right there. We got to stop right there. Can't go past that.
That was real.
It was real. But I got to play devil's advocate.
Okay.
I got to play devil's advocate. Theory always sounds great because it's theory. Practical application is something completely different. In construction, we love it when people come out of school with degrees in architecture and engineering and you've never been on a construction site. You know the theory behind building a building. You've never actually built the building with your hands. So when things don't line up, you're like, but I don't understand. It's supposed to work this way, this way. Yeah, but that's the way you think it's supposed to work until you see what reality says.
Yeah, go on the field.
Reality says this. Reality says this. If you are in poverty and somebody has to go out there and try to bring home some type of money to make an honest, keyword, honest living. Matter of fact, we're not even going to say keyword, because even dishonesty, doing that still takes a hell of a lot of work to build, to get to money and bring it in. So both doesn't matter. Anybody out there trying to bring home enough money to support that household, especially in urban America, it's not a two-part household. 75% and better, it's a one-person household. So though you are fortunate that you've had both parents, like Jared, there's people like me that are more commonplace than people like you guys that have either the mother or the father. Okay? Doesn't matter who, but it's a single parent. That single parent leaves the house, they're trying to provide for their child. God forbid they don't have a decent education. God forbid they don't have any experience. God forbid they don't have the resources to get a decent job where they can go work 9 to 5, a regular 8-hour day, and make enough to be able to come home and at least interact with the child. Other than that, you have what reality is you're working 2 jobs and maybe even 3 jobs because they're all low-end jobs to try to provide. There is a balance there that children have to understand and parents have to accept. There is no perfect way to raise a child based on your circumstance. You do the best that you can with the tools that you are given, right? But why a lot of these children now, and I don't know how old you are, but from
21 from a distance.
Right.
And
But
there
from
you go.
the conversation, I would say you're more in my generation, right?
Mhm.
The reason that we didn't have those type of events happen in school like they are happening now is mainly not because of what happens in the house, it's what happened outside of the house. See, when we went outside, we played with each other. We learned social economics. This is a key component that is missing in almost these last 3 generations because of the computer, because of the internet, because everything online. You didn't learn social economics. You didn't learn emotional stability.
Mhm.
This is why we didn't go through that. See, when we went, I just told you, when we went through a problem in the projects, we went upstairs, got smacked, and came right back downstairs and dealt with that problem right in the moment. You understand what I'm saying? It wasn't no weeks later. It was in the moment. You learned rejection in the moment. You learned acceptance in the moment. You learned everything in the moment. And then you learned how to process it. And this was a lesson that was taught every single day. So by the time you became a young adult, you had a full spectrum of understanding the good, the bad, the rejection, etc. With these kids nowadays, because that interaction is not the same and everything is distance, they're missing so many of those key components that they're emotionally unstable.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. It's not saying that the parents are doing a bad job. The parents only do what they can do because once again, once you leave the house, the magnitude of what you're learning outside is it's being over it's overpowering the lessons that you're learning inside the house, especially because you might not have a parent in the house as much time as you're spending outside the home. It's always the majority of the lesson kind of rules situation. You understand? So if you're fortunate enough to have a 2-parent household where especially one parent can stay home and be the nurturer and provide that daily lesson, right? While the other parent then comes home and reinforces that lesson, that's phenomenal. But when you remove that, when you only have one parent and she's trying to provide or he's trying to provide the balance of both, this is why you're ending up with the class of message we have now. That's really
that's
real.
real.
I definitely think home impacts school, home impacts work.
Yeah.
I will say this, I never said that my mother and father stayed together. That's your assumption.
Mm.
Okay, well, you know why I said it though? Because you said they moved together. I'm just going over your information. They came to the Bronx together. Your father went to Houston, and then your family followed.
Yep.
And then you also gave the information that they worked together in a business capacity.
Yep.
So I'm not saying they stayed together for their entire life, but that's a long period
of time. That's a hell of a foundation. That's a great foundation.
It wasn't that long. By the time I was 17, I left the house and my mom was definitely a single mom.
But wait a minute, 17. Yeah. Let me explain something to you. My biological father passed away when I was 7.
Yeah.
7. And before that, I have 3 vivid memories of him in my entire life. 3.
7. Yeah.
You said 17. I'm telling you, you see the difference?
Yeah. Yeah. But they weren't together.
No, but even if they're interacting together, it's still a unified front to a child. It's still a unified front.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. You're absolutely right about that. Right. I think again, particularly with smaller children and all that they take in and how they process things in early age, what they're able to remember really is impacting overall. Right. It's impacting in how they interrelate with others, how they interact in the world. You know, I currently, because I understand this so intimately, have a goddaughter who, 4th generation projects and New York City public schools. And she's no longer that, because 2 years ago, when I really understood for a 15-year-old how difficult that was, when I recall going off on my own at like 16 and a half, I looked at her and I said, you can come live here. So it's not about, for me, relationships sometimes work and sometimes they don't work. The most beautiful thing about all of our parents, whether they stayed together, whether we were unfortunate enough to lose them early, is that they came together to create the unique people that we are.
Message.
Yeah.
And no one can dispute that is probably, all modesty aside, in some instances, the best thing that they ever did.
Man,
So my goddaughter came here 2 years ago in 2022 because she was having a rough time living in a project, New York City, a project's environment, because she's got a great grandmother, a grandmother, and a mother who all live in the projects. And fourth generation be damned, it stops with her. And because I know lots of women, no single mothers, no single fathers. And in 2005, I became this little girl. She was a 5-month-old girl, 2006, a 5-month-old girl. And I was asked to be her godmother. And I take her tutelage very seriously. And so it's not so much about the parents, because sometimes the child that these parents bring to the planet are the best thing that could be happening to the planet. It's about other people recognizing how to be a brother or a sister to, and I don't have to live in the projects to have decided to be her godmother. Mm-hmm. That you're going to support that other woman, that other man who brought a child to the planet. How can you help? And so, I'm super proud of her. Her name is Kara, and foot on the neck, because these kids need that. But I didn't give her the messages of you got to be twice as good. I just let her know that she is good, and the world deserves to have that served up. And did I stay up till 2:00 in the morning sometimes? Did I stay up until 4:00 in the morning sometimes because the paper she had been told about 2 weeks ago in English was just being done the night before? I've done it, and I did it as recently as 4 months ago. But she has early acceptance to American University. She's aware of the difficulties in life and how she can make her presence known. She's going to become a biomedical engineer. She's going to American University in a dual degree program. Each of us, with the wherewithal and the knowledge and the recovery from whatever it is that we came through, have an obligation to stand up as a ladder for somebody else.
Message.
I love that right there.
And so that's how that works. And particularly in a community that is a Black community that is so built with strife, segregating ourselves and separating ourselves. And I live in the suburbs, and I've never lived in the projects. That's me. All of those things. That doesn't change the fact that there's an ache and a need, an achievement had and to be halved in the community that you belong to. And that community is not about where you live or how much money you had or whether your parents are divorced or whether they were ever married. It's about, I want us all to win, and that there's enough for everybody so that we can win.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, that's a great point, Queen, because I'm also curious, as you say that, what has been your interaction with other Black professionals as you climb the ladder? We talk about that a lot, sis. There's a lot of gatekeeping. We pull each other down.
She chuckled right off the bat when
right off the rip,
which means her initial reaction was
shit. Hated it.
Same time. That's real.
First of all, there's not many of you in any given space, right?
That's right.
There have been women in my space, in spaces that I've been in, even recently. They're like, I got you, sis. Welcome. Let me show you. Let me tell you. Let me whisper down the lane. Let me jump on that call with you so they behave. Like, the force of two. Because people tend to misbehave when you're the only one in the room. Yeah. But there have been the ones that I want to be the only one on the runway. There doesn't need to be another Black model up here.
Message.
And so we have a deep mental, spiritual, ego-based thing that we have to admit to and work on and get over. We have to make sure that we're not, filling the stereotypes that others have of us and also that we have of ourselves. And the Black men have been gracious, but they're even fewer and far between. They've been wonderful and gracious.
Wow.
So it's there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of recovery that people need. It's that what happened in your childhood, what happened to you in school, you are here, you've arrived here, though you may not have arrived. Where did you learn that that was okay? So, you can go to college and join a sorority and a fraternity, and there's this notion of sisterhood and brotherhood. But again, it starts at home. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of people feel like, well, they're not only going to let all of us in, and they let me in, so maybe I'm not going to embrace you because they don't like us in groups. They don't like when there's a lot of us. So dealing with that reality it's not even about that. It's knowing who you are, being honest about who you are, understanding whether your value and what the value you bring to the table is to help and to make better, to grow the business, the people, yourself, and walking with that every day. And let me tell you, the truth of it all is that when it's all said and done, how do I encapsulate all of this? It's all covered in prayer.
Okay.
I think if you've got a spiritual premise for how it is you exist, use that as your hygiene. Use it as your armor as you walk out into the world, and particularly into the business world, because that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where the difference is made.
Message. I can respect that.
People are in a lot of pain. So you will hear some people say, if they wish to be honest and if they wish to be, translucent, that they've probably gotten more opportunities working with people who look nothing like them, don't even share their gender, than they have gotten with people that do look like them.
Message.
That trauma.
I can personally attest to that, because in my career, you were the first Black person or African-American person to try to mentor me. You were. Nobody else pulled me aside and said, Jared, you'll come here. I like you know this, but if you tighten up here, you can go here. Nobody ever gave that. Anybody else has been either a white male, white woman that pulled me aside and said, I really like you and helped me progress in my career and things like that. You were the first one, followed by Ken Gibbs shortly after.
Yeah.
And then after that was Solomon Choi, who's an Asian man.
Yep.
Who's very successful, right? So it's like, we don't have any of that. Like, I wish we had that. And that's the reason why we do this and why we stay consistent and true to this. Like, we want to be able to build a community where somebody like myself, the 21-year-old version of me, can reach out to a Perry Fair, can reach out to Adrienne, can reach out to a Peter or somebody like that from Black Cat. We need to have that. Yeah. But once again, how do we do that when we know they don't like us congregating like that? And then when we do get together, what is the change we actually going to make?
Yeah. It's how we treat each other when we do get together, when we're in the rooms. This resistance, this gatekeeping that you all speak of is real. It's absolutely real. And it's just, there's this notion. My brother and I once had, my crybaby brother and I once had a t-shirt company. It's a luxury t-shirt company many years ago, probably as much as 15 years ago. And it was these luxury tees, just the most luxurious t-shirt you've ever felt. And they were hand-painted tees. And it was a spinoff of a company called Image Matters. And we went to Magic, which is a show for in Vegas. And, we noticed, and it wasn't our imagination, because my brother said it to me at dinner. He was like, did you notice that all like the brothers and sisters was just giving us the side eye? And I was like, I did. And it was who embraced us didn't look anything like us. And we needed to be careful because there were a lot of Chinese embracing us who come just for that, but just so they can, take it and duplicate it and make a cheaper version. So we were forewarned about that. But the embrace that we received was not from our own, because everyone doesn't understand that there's enough for everybody. And it stimulated us to create T-shirts when we got back home, which sold out, that were E for E T-shirts, the letter E, the number 4, the letter E, and then on the back it said there's enough for everybody. And so I don't think that there's a limited pie. I think it's how we believe that the pie, how big we believe the pie is, and how we are willing to share our slice or not.
Message.
Ooh. It's how big is the pie and what kind of slice? Ooh, that was real. I like that.
I want to just that's very interesting to me that you said about the luxury T-shirts and stuff like that. Yeah. And even the name E4E, because I had a friend of mine who passed away a couple of years ago, one of the most talented brothers that I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. He actually had the clothing line called EYE. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And he did a lot of hand painted clothing and mm-hmm. I think one of his biggest claim to fame when he got recognized by the magazines and stuff, mm-hmm. Because he was a true artist. I mean, he can do like sculptures and hand drawings with like charcoal. I mean, like this kid was pure talent. He did a bunch of hand painted drawings on just like cardboard cutouts. Mm-hmm. First.
Yeah, amazing.
Oils and stuff, and they picked on. So when you said the E4E, I reminded
you.
Yeah, EY.
I mean, we're all connected. It was wearable art. It did really well. We had folks saying, "I need this for this rap video that I'm shooting. I need folks to wear it." Yeah. I'm sure we still have some. I'll send you guys some T-shirts you can represent.
Size small. I'm a medium. I'm telling you, Adrienne, don't send me no large. Medium. Jared's the large. I'm the medium.
Do you?
I didn't like your tone. I hated your tone.
Do you remember when everyone was wearing way oversized T-shirts, and it was like, I can fit 2 of you in that T-shirt?
Yeah.
The Harlem Shake. I remember those.
We were talking about vintage stuff like that. Cause we talk about so much stuff on this show. Because I've been roughly the same dimension since high school.
Right.
I actually have like a lot of clothes from like 96, 97, right?
A nice problem to have.
Yeah, and I actually pulled out a couple of my custom Vansons from when me and Fab used to go down to the Genesis store on 56 and like 5th Avenue to get our Vansons, and they're a size 54. I put them on and they wrap around me like this. like a wombat.
You're trying out for Missy Elliott.
I promise you. Yeah, I promise you, I'm like a size. If I was to buy a jacket now, like a Pele or something, an Averex, it'd be like a size 38. You understand what I'm saying? Right. My jacket is 54, but from that era where nobody bought their size. Nobody.
Yeah.
If you were a medium, you were buying a large or an extra large. That's when Jabot jeans were really famous.
Yes.
The Carl Kanai were cut big, the wide legs. The boot cut for the Timbs and stuff. Yeah. And we wore that look, and I still got so much clothes from that era. But people, you know what, when you were creating these hand painted T-shirts, one thing about our culture is we love to get fly. Black and brown people love to get fly. And one thing I love when it comes to getting fly is exclusivity. It's to say, you ain't got this, homie. You know what I mean? So when you paint something that's hand painted, every single piece technically is a one of one.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a one of one, right? Yours looks similar to this, but this is a one of one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when people get a chance to see quality, right, mixed with exclusivity, and then be able to support this is what we've been preaching throughout the creation of this show, right?
Yeah, we love that time.
Create a product. Do your homework, right? Create a phenomenal product and it will sell itself, right?
Yeah.
So then when you bring this product to market, then we as the consumers, we're one of the number one consuming groups out there, right?
Oh, yeah.
You can accept the product, but stop half-assing it, right? Just doing an iron on and throwing some bullshit on it. Then you want to sell a shirt for $75 and then wonder why nobody's supporting you.
Yeah.
Message.
You understand what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
we there's a lot of lessons that we can learn if we're willing to learn, right?
We got to be open. We have to be open.
Right? And let me tell you something. I learned. Let me just speak for me personally. I learned a lot just on these podcasts. How about that, right? There almost has been not one show in 108 episodes that I can say a guest didn't teach me something. And there's a many clip where you'll hear me on a clip and say, I did not know that. Because I'm not going to act like, you understand? There's a lot of shit I don't know, and I'm interested in learning because I'm like, didn't know that. You know what I mean? And it's refreshing to learn a lot of new things because now I can take all that new information and make whatever I'm doing better. See, that's the key to what we have to do when understanding how to grow as a culture, right? We don't know everything, but if we're open to learning, you can learn from anybody. Doesn't matter their status in life, doesn't matter their position in life, right? Listen and learn because they might have more experience than you. Just because economically they might not have as much money as you doesn't mean that you can't learn a lot from this person.
Right.
So open and willing to learn, you learn, and then we can take these lessons and teach them to each other. And then we can turn around and teach them to the next up and coming generations and say, listen, we made these mistakes. Now, instead of you getting here in 10 moves, you can get here in 3. Why make the unnecessary 7 extra steps?
Yeah. Yeah.
You understand?
It is openness that makes all the difference. It's the willingness to also learn from someone that doesn't look like you. You'd be surprised the similarities of experience someone has when you're open-minded and you listen to their story. There's a lot that we still have to do. But I think for me, and the way that I've studied through any change in career or even in life is taking care of your mental health, being willing to ask for help. You know, you've got to find at least one person you can trust to tell anything. We have a crisis of kind of work, entrepreneurism, opportunity, and all these things, but the premise of it is am I well? Are we well? You know, and how do I get well? And I think wellness is a huge challenge in our community. And when I say our community, I mean with Blacks and African Americans, because just like anything else where you're looking for the person that looks like you, sometimes in order for someone to get well, they want the person to look like them.
Message.
And you know, like wellness is the most urgent thing on the planet.
Yep.
Love is begotten from wellness, right? You all talked about love early on.
Yeah.
And so you got to trust that sometimes wellness is not going to, or the methods towards wellness is not going to come from someone that looks just like you. Don't delay. I think we all have a gift to give to this planet, and wellness and mental hygiene, that steadies us. That brings, I don't really give a damn about balance. I think it's a falsehood.
Okay.
So I heard that word twice and I heard it twice and I was almost triggered, but let me finish.
You don't believe
I don't believe in balance. I believe in harmony.
Okay.
I believe in harmony.
Okay.
I don't believe that anything can be balanced. There's no balance for you guys as you, for the past year, have been making this tremendous thing that is more than a title. There's no point at which you can tell me you've had balance. But you can tell me that things have been harmonious, that worked out, that made sense. Like it flowed. Once I did this, then it begot that. But balance, I don't think that exists. I think it's about two guys who have incredible talents, who have business experience, who have street smarts, and are incredibly charismatic and can talk to anybody because they're real. Taking that up and mixing it and creating a harmony, almost like a singing bowl. We're not talking food, we're talking singing bowls. And and you're just mixing it up as if there's something to be served, and it's harmonious. It just works. Right? And so, like, I don't seek balance. I hear people saying they're seeking balance, and I'm like, what you need to do is write a balanced line of what you want, who you are, what you like to do, what you've learned to do, what you want to do, mix it up and see what comes out of it.
Right. So when I talk about balance, I'm not talking about the even distribution of a thing. Because remember, like any definition of a
doesn't
word
exist.
Right. So like
It doesn't exist.
Word, right? You can have the noun, the pronoun, verb. There's different definitions of a word. That's why I don't like people to say, oh, be humble, because one of the definitions of humble is having a low esteem, right? But a lot of people walk around like, oh, you're not humble. You goddamn right, I'm not humble. Why would I have a lower esteem of myself? Right. So when I talk balance, I'm not talking about the even distribution of a thing.
Right.
Which because the way I'm using balance can also be considered harmony, right?
Yeah.
Balancing me and my cousin is very simple, right? He allows me to be me and I allow him to be him. We're not in competition to see who's going to be on top. When he's on top, you know what I am? I'm Chad Nash. I'm putting it right by the rim. And when I'm hot, then he's throwing it behind him. That's what our balance is. We don't, there has never been a time where we've seen someone else, one or another shine, and we jump in and go, I need the light too. No, that's if you ever meet us in person, or you ever listen to anybody that's ever met us in person, one of the best things that they tell you about us is our harmony, our balance, right?
Yes.
You got to see these guys in person. They're like fucking 1 and 2. It's almost like they memorize this shit, and we don't. We just understand that we allow each other to see each other, right? So when I talk about balance and things, that's the, I guess you can say harmony, but that's the balance.
Harmonious.
I'm just talking about the harmony or the balance. And listen, if I'm a single father, which I was, right? By the way, I wish I was, right? My son is now 22 going to 23, and I had custody of him since he was like 1.5. So I am a single father that came from a single mother. So technically now I'm a second generation single parent. You see, you understand? But look at the balance, my balance, right? I wasn't taught how to be a father by a man, by my own father, but I turned out to be a phenomenal father because I took lessons from like Jared's uncles and you know what I'm saying, and from the people my mom dated, the good and the bad, and I found my balance in that and used those, right? We can't, like you said, I was willing to learn, so I took the bad lessons, right? And I took good lessons, and some of the things I was like, yeah, I could get with, and some of the things I was like, nah, I'm not doing it. Right. You understand what I'm saying, Adrienne? Because we have an obligation to ourselves to draw a line in the sand and say, my name can be associated with certain things, but it'll never be associated with other things.
Boundaries are important. Love it.
Yeah. So that's when I talk about balance, I talk about balance like that, right? You can still become something if you're willing to learn. Even if you haven't had the experience and being taught how to become what you're seeking to become. You know what I'm saying, right? So when you said you became some godparent, I take that very seriously, right? Like I only have 2 godchildren, 2, like 2. Jared's youngest son is one of them because I just refuse to be just any old person's godparent. Right. I take that job seriously, right? I look at a godparent as a person that, one, is supposed to be a spiritual advisor for your child, right? Take your child down a spiritual journey, help them to find their spirituality and their religion.
Absolutely.
Right. But also one of the biggest things I look at it too is if something happens to Jared or if something happens, God forbid, to his mother, then I'm going to step in and say,
that's yours. That is your child.
That's right. He's trusted me. And I take that very seriously, right? You know why I take it very seriously? Because one of the greatest guys in my life was my godfather.
That's right.
So you understand what I'm saying? So I agree with you on so many things that you say. And your actions resonate with me so much. But that's why when we seek therapy, we want somebody that looks like us, because when you can relate to somebody, when I can listen to you and hear the passion and it resonates, then me opening up to you is so much easier because I feel like I can be vulnerable. You understand now. You understand the show. But when you go to somebody, bad enough, guys, black and brown men, not talk to nobody. You know, you Caribbean men too. You know they Caribbean men talk about mental health. That proudness is unmatched, right? So to break down that wall already is one thing, but then to do it to somebody that you're looking at like, why am I spilling my guts to you? And you don't even begin to understand why I feel the way I feel. So any information you give me, I'm going to look at you like, well, how the fuck would you know?
But are we looking for folks to understand what we feel, or are we just sometimes looking for a sounding board and, you know, skills and methods to get to the other side?
Maybe both.
Sometimes these therapists are, you know, they're objective. Oftentimes they don't necessarily feel what you felt or felt what you feel, but they're there to be able to let you know whether or not what you're managing to is something that you can get over through action, or maybe it needs a different kind of help because it's chemical.
Okay.
So, you know, when we think about it in that regard, and then, you know, the willingness, and then you can decide like jobs or girlfriends or anything else, or a pizza shop, whether or not you're going to visit again.
Yeah.
But my whole thing is, it's the willingness and the openness to visit and to know that you are valuable, that you deserve to be here, that you have something to contribute to the planet, and we want it. And the way to get there is first and foremost by being well. The third part of, you said two of the parts of what I feel as mutual godparents is what I feel is important with godparents. But the other part is to be the person that will kind of check the parent while they're parenting, if their parenting is off.
Right. There you go.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not waiting for you to die or be disabled or financially, you know, at a financial deficit to help out with your kid.
Right.
Like, I'm going to be present in this kid's life at all times. So I've always been Auntie A to Kara, and I've always been Auntie A to Janiyah, but it's like, you know, checking their parents. And just kind of like, you know, you may need some help too, or you know, or what's going on there, or just knowing. But godparents are considered, you know, the great godfather and the fairy godmother. Because it's always, you're always like, I always say to people, hashtag Team Kara, hashtag Team Janiyah. You know, these are my baby empresses, and they can do no wrong in my eyes. It's just like when their parents come to me, I'm like, so what did you do? You know. But I think if everyone could, even as adults, just kind of recognize those who didn't have a godparent and just godparent each other, man, where would we be?
Well, we used to do that, Adrienne. This is what I'm saying to you, right?
Yeah.
Let me tell you something, Jared. I'm gonna make you laugh here, right? I don't know. Did you see our mama show?
I remember you, Jared, talking about his uncle.
Okay, so we had a show. Last month was, you know, Women's Month. So we had nothing but women on the show the entire month. Not one male come on the show. We ended it off with bringing both of our mamas onto the show, right?
Oh, I got to go see that.
Yes. Yeah. So let me make you laugh. So my mama, his mama grew up roughly like a block and a half away from each other. Both of their name is Renee. They're both Scorpios. You can't make this up, right? You cannot make this up, right? So, but in the era that we grew up in, if his mother or his aunt or anybody seen me doing something that I wasn't supposed to do, whether godparent or not, they put a foot in my ass. I'm telling you right now, they grabbed me, dragged my ass back up the block, popped me in the head. Back in the day, that is how our community was a village. Right. Not only did they help raise the children together through education and resources, but also discipline. Yeah, and my mother, if you pop me and brought me upstairs and told my mother you popped me, she would pop me again for even having you pop me and disrespecting that you had to pop me. But then she would, you know what she would tell you? Thank you for keeping him in check. But see, now these new mothers,
politically correct. Don't even look at my child.
That's a fact. Right. If you put your hands on their kid, you understand, and then bring them upstairs and say, I had to buzz, you know, so-and-so's ass because I caught them doing something they was absolutely not supposed to be doing. You be lucky if you and the mama or you and the father's not getting into it immediately. You put your hand on now the only story is you put your hand on my kid. That's the only priority. Not thank you. Not thank you for being the support, the village, but you put your hand on my kid. So that's what I'm telling you. The times that we grew up in versus the times now is completely different.
It's completely different, but it is about the times, right? We had probably more trustworthy adults. as well. Like
that's exactly where I was going to go with that.
Really two sides to the coin. When I talk about all the things that it starts in the home, you know, a lot of parents, a teacher calls home or what have you. If a teacher called home when I was growing up, I was the one who was assumed wrong. Now, when a teacher calls home, there's so many microaggressions that our kids are dealing with in school with teachers who don't look like them, you know, whether it might be a male teacher, how he deals with female students. That is the case of the balance, you know, that you talk about, where it's like, I got to weigh it all. I got to weigh it all.
I get one.
Yes, absolutely. Because you have to weigh it. You have to weigh it. These are different times. We don't recall, you know, these crazy school shootings and all of this other stuff. What these kids, I would say, anyone that's 25 years old, what they are coming up in versus what the rest of us have come up in is very different. And who we've entrusted them to has also changed.
Yep.
And so all we can do, and all I ever do, is hone my best talents. I use my spirituality as hygiene. I'm a constant seeker of learning and learning about myself and learning about people and the technology, because there's so much technology in the time that we're growing up in. And I just apply that to the stuff that I know that I'm really, really good at. And in the end, I hope we all win.
That's it.
Message.
I love it, man. You know what I mean?
Is super dope.
I think if more of us shared this energy and this attitude, I'm not saying we're not progressing as a culture. I'm saying we're moving at a snail's pace. And I just would like us to move a little faster. I understand evolution takes time.
Yeah.
And like you said, and we've talked about this, especially with Danny Benson. I don't know if you know Danny Benson. She came on the show. She's doing something called One I'm Proud of You, Sis, right? Where she goes around with the promotion of the Black and brown culture and the sisterhood and things of that nature. But also what she's doing is something called Self-Love Day, right? Where she's trying to get legislation passed where she's trying to get the schools to actually implement mental health at the early stages for kids going through trauma in like elementary school, like starting there, right? Which is super dope, right? So this is what I'm talking about. If more of us was on this type of time, then what we could do is just try to move this thing forward a little faster, right? That's why we created this platform right here.
You guys are doing a tremendous job. Just awakening, you know, people to kind of what actually matters. You know, how do we move forward, whether it's in business and life, and how do we? You guys are sparking just a look at humanity in a time where I don't think any other business oriented or podcast connected to business leaders is doing that.
No,
you know,
and that means a lot to us. Like, cause it's all about, like you said, we didn't have the resources and things like that, but it's just, we appreciate everybody being transparent because it's the level and it's a talent, right? To make somebody feel comfortable to come up here and be real.
Absolutely.
Like, the amount of stories that we've had, like you being transparent about your family story. We've had relationship stories. We've had Beyonce stories. We had, you name it. Like, we've got a story.
KKK stories.
KKK leaving a noose on the desk at work. Like, and people are feeling comfortable to tell their stories. Being fired on the day of the anniversary of your wife passing, like stories like that, people being vindictive, like, and we're just glad to be able to be the safe space for the culture, you know.
You're shining the light on the darkness, and that's what it is. That's what it is, and that's the only way it disintegrates. You can't go back and change people's past, but I'll be damned if we can't predict and cultivate and curate what the future would look like.
Message.
I love it. Can you please, and I mean, please let the people know where they can find you. I guarantee you there's going to be so many people that's going to want to reach out to you. Where can the people find you at, Adrienne?
On LinkedIn. I am Adrienne A. Wallace on LinkedIn. I have a website. It's Adrienne A. Wallace. That A is important because if you Google, there's a couple of Adrienne Wallaces. You'd be surprised, but none are me, and I am none of them. So I would say that folks should chase me on LinkedIn. Let's connect there and take it from there.
Perfect. And what we like to do is we like to now welcome you to the More Than a Title family. Absolutely. You know, even though
I can give you the bell and the horn.
Absolutely. And we would like to show you that we are not gatekeepers by extending you this courtesy of bringing you into the family and saying to you this. Number one, you now have access to over 100 guests that we have now brought onto our shows. We let our guests know ahead of time that you coming on the show, you're going to now be a part of the More Than the Title Network, and anybody that might want to connect you, we're going to connect you immediately, right? So anybody that you've ever seen on the show that you might want to connect with, that you might want to, you know, pick their brain or get a mentorship, you let us know and we will make that connection. And we've done that several times already. So welcome to the family for that. And now I'm a part of that network. Number one. Number two, do we have a personal number, Jared?
Yep.
Okay. We're going to create a group chat for you with me, you, and Jared, because this is our first conversation as a group, but it won't be our last, right? And we need to continue this conversation with somebody as intelligent as you, because we're doing a lot of things, especially educationally based, right? A lot of programs, because we teach programs and things of that nature. So there's going to be a lot of times that we might have opportunities that we can present your way, or we might just need your knowledge or your tutelage, if you wouldn't mind giving it to us on a situation we might have.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
So, and if you're ever in New York, again, right?
I'm 55 minutes outside of New York, so I'm in New York probably more frequently than people know.
So listen, we're letting you know, whenever you want to, meet us in person, we love to meet you in person, and
the dog agrees.
You dog like, yo, bring me to New York too, you see? And love to do that. And I just want to thank you again, Adrienne. This has been a phenomenal show.
Thank you, guys.
I've learned so much. You are such a beautifully intelligent woman. And you speak so passionately. And I'm telling you, our fans are gonna they're gonna love this show. I promise you.
Well, I appreciate you, and I certainly appreciate your fans, and I know that there are more to come, thousands fold. So thank you again. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks you too. Queen. We see you guys another episode of More Than the Title, baby. We out of here.
What you know about me? Seen it all, heard it all. Oh, what you know about me? I've done it all, just one.